Come and watch till the end. Zachariah resides in a post-apocalyptic world as most of the world's resources are lost to radiation. Her only companion is her dog Pharaoh, and they spend all their time together on her family's farm. She leads a very routine life, mostly gathering food and setting traps for stray animals. One day she comes across that Ant and Pharaoh follow him to a nearby waterfall where John baits himself knowing that the water is contaminated and instructs him to get out of the water. But John is shocked to see her. Instead, he points a gun at her and fires it elsewhere, thinking that she does not come in peace. Finally, John listens to Anna and gets out of the water. The water sickens him immediately, making him rush back to his wagon for some medicine. With Anne's help, John regains his strength. After the medicine is injected into him, not only does she rinse him off, but she also welcomes him into her home while John rests and brings the wagon and sees pictures of John and a woman who might have been his wife for days. John is bedridden, but it makes sure that he receives the care he needs. One night, she hears her poor visitor have a nightmare, and she comes to his room to comfort him as he sleeps. John grows weaker by the day and then sympathetically looks at him by the bedside. She sincerely prays for John's recovery and desperately wishes for him to stay with her. Remarkably, John's health starts to improve, slowly becoming part of Anne's rural life. Both of them humbly talk about life before the apocalypse. While Anne shows a picture album of her family, she is left alone after the rest of her family members set a journey to find other survivors, but they never returned, and especially misses her younger brother who she was extremely close to. So she shows John a picture of him as an engineer. John theorizes that Anne's farm is sheltered from radioactive contaminants because of the rocky hillsides and favorable weather patterns. After their conversation, Anne gets up and hugs John, a gesture she has not done in such a long time. The following day, John comes out of the house to watch and work around the farm and notices an old tractor. According to Anne, she ran out of gas last year and has not used it since John instructed her on how to manually pump gas from an abandoned station nearby. With his knowledge about machines, she follows his instructions written on paper and eventually succeeds in acquiring sufficient gas, making the long-disused tractor finally run at dinner. John and Anne spend the next day by the pond, where she offers him fresh fish, something he has not had in a long time, while John enjoys his sumptuous meal and recalls the last winter when she almost froze and starved to death because her generator was broken and she could not stock up on fish and other food in the fridge. Hearing she has a generator, John offers to fix it, hoping it will help them. John believes that they could utilize the contaminated waterfall as a source of hydroelectric power. It could work with the water, constructed from the church's planks and woods, which means that the holy building should be demolished to get the parts, and becomes uncomfortable with his proposal, claiming that her father built it and preached there every Sunday. The building is more than just a structure to her, as it holds deep sentimental value. After persuading in a couple of times, John eventually decides not to pursue the project. For the following days, they work together around the farm to supply food and other resources. At this point, they both see flaws in each other, rooted in their work ethic and spiritual beliefs. In the abandoned mini-mart, and sees John drunk with empty bottles of beer surrounding him. John mocks her for consuming all of the sweet stuff on the shelves, but not the beers on the fridge. Despite this, and helps him get up and brings him home to rest. As she removes his dirty clothes, John becomes agitated and shouts at her for helping him too much. He repeatedly says that he does not need her help at all, even pinning her against the wall. Anne's timid nature is shaken as she has never interacted with behavior like John's in the past, making her walk out of the room fearfully, realizing that he is at fault. John offers his sincere apology in the morning, which Anne accepts willingly. They continue to work together as if nothing happened the night before. At dinner, Anne surprises John with a bottle of wine, which they share. After a couple of glasses, both of them become tipsy and dance together in the living room. The moment becomes gradually intimate, which leads to their very first kiss. John and Anne head upstairs and arrive on the verge of engaging in a sensual relationship, but he hesitates because he thinks being intimate with Anne will completely change things between them, but does not change the fact that he likes her. He also adds that they need more time to get to know each other before cuddling in the same bed. On a regular day of monitoring the farm, she notices changes in her traps, and Pharaoh is more excited when Caleb shares that he walked 50 miles from a mine in search of food and other resources. He is welcomed on the farm, but John says he has to camp outside for the time being as he picks up radiation along the way. Anne's kind nature could not stand leaving anyone outside while she enjoyed the comforts of her home, so she invited Caleb inside, and they shared a meal and told stories about the horrors of the apocalypse. John says that before arriving at the farm, he found a sickly teenager covered in dirt and tried to take care of him, but his body was too weak. The boy begged him to kill him out of mercy, which he did. Caleb shares a traumatic experience inside the mine he was trapped in during his first week, where he saw multiple men kill each other due to their terrible conditions. After the meal, John gives Caleb a tour of the house. John sits with Anne at the table and reveals that the boy he killed is Anne's lost brother. Anne is speechless and cannot look him in the eye as she fights back tears over the shocking news. The next day, John and Caleb go turkey hunting. While walking around, Caleb stresses his spiritual connection with Anne and recommends a light-hearted wager in her favor, which John does not like because of his serious and logical attitude. Caleb is more laid back and easygoing. Both of them walk to the nearby waterfall, where John explains the canceled project about the water wheel that could be a power source. Over dinner, Caleb brings up the water wheel project, which John feels uncomfortable with. She explains that the building holds a place in her heart, but she's now open to rebuilding something else. John tells him that she does not have to push through with the water wheel that she isn't ready yet, pressured by Caleb's remarks, and gives a go signal on tearing the church down for materials. The next day, work commences on the water wheel project as they gather wood from the sacred building. Slowly, the building becomes a structure until there is nothing left of it but a distant memory of Anne's father while working on it. Anne and Caleb start having a bond between them, which John immediately notices. They start exchanging glances that hint at their attraction toward each other. As the project progresses, so does their closeness. After the demolition, Caleb and Anne walk in the woods and end up in the nearby cave. They talk about their shared faith in the Christian religion, claiming that it is the only thing that gets them going. As they arrive back on site, John has already made a lot of progress in constructing the water wheel. The simple structure gives them more hope that life in this post-apocalyptic world could improve in the simplest ways. Seeing the attraction between Anne and Caleb, John awkwardly gives her consent to be in a relationship with Caleb. When she defends herself, John makes a discriminating remark and says that he will not stand in her way of exploring with someone else. His words of unsolicited advice thrown off, making her walk out of the room. All three of them spend the next days constructing the water while around the contaminated waterfall. After remarkable progress, they hold a celebratory dinner as a big break from their accomplishment. After a couple of drinks, they decide to plunge into the pond, where they continue to have fun. When it becomes too cold, they decide to return to the house and end the night. Not long after, John tearfully expresses his love for Anne, which she finds difficult to believe. She holds hands with the intoxicated John on the way home and guides him as he passes out in bed, and hears Caleb still awake in his room from the hallway, so she walks toward it hoping that he would notice. Caleb expectantly opens the door and welcomes her inside before they make love. After days of exchanging flirty looks at daybreak, the tension grows in the once peaceful household because of the unofficial love triangle. As Caleb makes his way to the porch to sit with Anne, John immediately gets an idea of what happened the night before. Later, John and Caleb finish the water wheel structure and move the flume into place above the waterfall. While John is in charge of keeping the ropes in place, Caleb does the riskier job of securing the flume, and the project turns out well, making them smile and forget their rivalry for a moment while cramped in a hazmat suit. Caleb slips during the rope-assisted climb, but John pulls him up just in time as he gathers the ropes for safekeeping. Caleb slips on the mossy surface again, but John pulls him again, but John stops the pull, and the two men intently lock eyes while Caleb still teeters on the edge of the cliff. Right after John returns to the house alone, Ware apologizes for making their relationship unclear. John cuts her in the middle of the conversation and says that Caleb decided to leave and travel south. Annie is taken aback, but she does not waste any second and runs outside. After days of dwelling on Caleb's sudden disappearance and finding that the electricity in the house has been restored, she happily runs outside and finds her beloved organ in the barn, where she plays at him shortly after. John enters and listens while clapping his hands as if he feels guilty. The end. Watch another video. Come and watch till the end. High school party opens the film. MIT admits 17-year-old Rhoda Williams, celebrating with her beau. After observing Jupiter's quick succession in a NASA Journey photo, she fell in love with space research. Rhoda feels unstoppable. She drives drunk late at night, listening to the radio report that a new planet with a moon like Earth has emerged in the solar system. The planet surprised scientists. The radio tells listeners to gaze north to see the planet, which is visible from Earth. Rhoda drives fast when inebriated. A 3-person family is in a roadside automobile. The parents giggle when the child calls his robot Bob. The mother is pregnant while they converse. Rhoda's vehicle strikes them, ending their chat. She is aware. She exits her automobile to find the couple asleep in the other car. She turns around and finds the child lying motionless on the ground. Police sirens sound as the screen turns dark, revealing the newly discovered planet. Rhoda is arrested and displayed in a cell. 4 years later, Earth 2 is now closer to Earth and looks like a copy, according to a news source. Earth's surface now shows it. From the telescope, its continents, seas, and cities seem like Earth's. Scientists received radio signals from the planet. It remains undeciphered. Some scientists think the planet is a cosmic mirror mirroring Earth. Rhoda leaves jail 4 years after the disaster. Her parents bring her up after her first outing. Her brother discusses an essay contest sponsored by rich entrepreneur Keith Harding, who is sponsoring the first space journey to Earth 2 when discussing the second planet. The most motivated citizen gets a free ticket. Rhoda returns home and checks her room. She no longer likes the place or herself. The second Earth in the sky fascinates her. Rhoda then checks up the United States Enterprises program her brother mentioned on her laptop. She must submit an essay explaining why she wants to travel to get the civilian ticket. She looks at the laptop without typing. She moves to the attic and proclaims it her new room. A night sky image decorates her bedding. Rhoda applies for jobs the next day. As an ex-convict, she cannot attend MIT or any other college. Rhoda wants a job without people, but the office woman gives her one. She janitors at her former high school. The following day, she becomes a janitor. 4 years after the accident, Rhoda investigates the tragic junction. Automobile stops close and a guy exits. Rhoda recognizes the man from the other automobile. She is astonished since she believes she murdered everyone. In commemoration of his kid, the dad drives away with a robot toy in the pool. Rhoda hurries home and checks the case on her laptop. He is John Burroughs. The vehicle tragedy killed his wife and kid, but he was in a coma. He woke up years later and has lived alone since. She believes he left Yale's music faculty after additional investigation. She takes his address and meets him tomorrow. She watches him drink in his dirty living room through the window, unsure what to do. Snowy night. Rhoda is upset by her guilt and John's condition. She gently undresses on snow. She lays nude and shivering. As she sleeps in the cold, her hypothermia blue fingers gazing at Earth 2. Black screen. She lays in a hospital bed next. She was rescued from the cold. Her fingers are hurt but not deadly. She prepares an essay to apply for a ticket to Earth 2 after returning home. She writes that madmen, misfits, and orphans were the subjects of prior experiments, not nobility. As a criminal, she feels she is the best candidate for this experiment. After completing her essay, she buys candy at a grocery store and runs into her high school sweetheart. He admits to business school and presents her to his girlfriend. When Rhoda says she is a janitor, he seems uneasy. She leaves without the candies, humiliated by her existence. Rhoda visits John again because she has to apologize. She knocks on the door but is too frightened. Instead of confessing to killing his family, she pretends to be a Maidenhaven maid on a free trial. John agrees to let her clean the home after months of neglect. Rhoda accepts the falsehood because she is too invested. John sees her inspecting a telescope while cleaning. After she finishes, John, unaware of her identity, invites her to clean again next week. Rhoda practices telling John the truth all week. However, uneasiness returns when she knocks on his door. She cleans his home again without speaking. She starts seeing him weekly. John seldom speaks to her. Rhoda and her family watch a live broadcast of a scientist attempting to contact with Earth 2 one night. She gets a signal and discovers that the scientist from the other world is chatting. She shares her name, date, location, employment, and childhood recollections. Worldwide amazement. Everyone now thinks Earth 2 is a mirror world with the same population. Rhoda leads her residents to see the planet and moon. News has sparked a major discussion about truth and lies. Physicists believe Earth 2 is a perfect replica of our world, including its population. Some think we may meet and converse to our identical twin who has had a different life. John and Rhoda like space science. Rhoda accepts his telescope. They play video games and seem to be dating. John takes Rhoda home. John and Rhoda become closer each day. They eventually discuss the first Earth 2 trip. Rhoda informs him about the article she wrote, but John is suspicious about the excursion. Since humans still think they are the center of the universe, he says they are not ready to acknowledge their uniqueness. When Rhoda washes his wife's sweater, John becomes furious. He furiously orders her out. A radio discussion warns of Earth 2's perils. Some think a battle between worlds is likely since Earth 2's inhabitants have comparable weaponry and are suspicious. John's automobile greets Rhoda at home. She accepts his apology for his past actions. He demands she accompany him. He performs a new style-based work for her at a university auditorium. The performance strengthens their bond. They return to John's. Sex follows. John informs her about his injury and years-long coma afterwards. Rhoda refuses to inform him. Rhoda's brother informs her the spaceflight phone when she gets home. She phones back and is astonished when billionaire Keith Harding answers. He informs her she won the essay contest and will go to Earth 2. Rhoda brags to John. After praising her, John encourages her not to go since they are getting along. He fears Rhoda's future. She realizes she cannot lie to him forever. She ultimately confesses to causing the disaster that night. John's dumbfounded. He sits down and begs her to go. News media surround her home as she returns. Since her fortunate ticket circulated, people are digging into her background and advertising the accident. Her father saves her and takes her inside. United Space Ventures gives her an Earth 2 ticket. Rhoda hears a scientist's idea on TV a few days later. He claims that before Earth 2 became apparent to us, its inhabitants lived a mirrored existence. 4 years ago, the incident altered people's actions and maybe their futures. Rhoda now doubts her mirror self on the other world caused the disaster. She runs to John's home with the airline ticket, but he would not let her in. Rhoda slips into his residence via the window, determined. John chokes her after seeing her. He wrestles her free. She gets up and tells him the hypothesis she heard. She says his family may still be alive if the catastrophe never occurred. Rhoda gets him the ticket to locate his wife and kids on Earth 2. Rhoda resumed her usual life. She feels better after apologizing to John. Rhoda watches John in an interview before the shuttle launches. He accepts her offer and goes to Earth 2. Rhoda walks home from work 4 months after the first shuttle blasted off and is shocked to see herself from Earth 2. The movie finishes with two identical Rhodas staring at each other. The end. Watch another video. Welcome, come and watch till the end. Mouse makes mobile games. His life's objective is to assist a firm steal parents' money. Despite working, he plays online. He loves trolling. He enrages commenters. Avoid that person. Miles is shot. Hadley was warning him that his boss, Xander, was approaching. He mistakenly likes his ex's Instagram selfie. Nova's name. Xander informs Miles he is fired with grief. That jerk. Later, Miles discovers Schism in his apartment. Newest online trend. Schism is a live-action Call of Duty deathmatch. Criminals and oddballs compete. Drones and stolen cameras broadcast citywide battles. Miles taps his keyboard on a live webcast. The Schism community appreciates his efforts. He quickly attracts the admin's notice, and we shall learn that he is not someone to anger. He shuts and tosses away the laptop. But he is forcefully awakened up from his dream. The nice guests immediately put him back to sleep. Later, the Schism squad works on Miles. He wakes up in his room the following morning, maybe dreaming. Formally welcome him to Schism. First opponent is Nyx. Nyx is charming, kicks balls, and eats salt via her nose. I suppose he will educate himself. This action sequence was also great. A press story said she was criminally insane, age 13, and had just left the high-security prison before joining Split. Nyx discovers Miles' excuse them is her new opponent. If she wins, they will erase her record. Nyx instructs Donna to make Hay seem sly. Nick tags Maul's phone from a police station. But so terrifying, she blasts her way into the apartment and makes note of his figurine collection. Nice fat case with his life on the line. Miles makes one final request: shoot around the really rare stuff. Then he manages to pull together a distraction and jumps out the window. He then slides down the stairs and sticks the landing. All the meanwhile, over 300,000 people are already tuned in. Miles flees and runs into some police officers, explaining this is going to be tricky. Things quickly escalate, and he has no choice but to run. The cops make chase, and one of them corners him before blasting him with a taser. Unfortunately for the cop, this causes Miles to involuntarily shoot him. He apologizes profusely before dashing out. Nyx is still hot on his trail. Finally, we're at the park. Miles quickly spots Nova, but she's already on her way out. No worries, he'll just hop right in. He commands her to dry off. But as she doesn't know what's up, she's just like, take a chill pill, my dude, kinda hard to do. And Nyx was pulling up with the bazooka, but okay, I'll try my best. Richter Splithead is angry that he calms down and the parent drives away. Nix fires the bazooka after driving away the drone. Nova responds as expected when Miles informs her his position is horrible. He hides again. Richter channeling his inner 50 Shades of Grey against Miles. Richter slumps out of the garbage pail and wears his old clothes. A hobo advises him against meeting God. The angle's incorrect. He shoots himself. Nova phones police for assistance. Stanton laughs while watching Schism. After she departs, Detective DeGrace hacks her phone. He wants to catch Nix, and this could work. He then examines an evidence board containing family, automobile accident, and Nix photos. We too. Miles is a vegetarian, but the hobo called Glenjamin helped him with his clothes and fed him a hot dog. Glenjamin advises him, "It is one thing to say you cannot face violence, but when it does, be ready. I appreciate Ball's animalistic hot dog eating." After the tasty 8-month-old supper, he thanks. "Please take my phone from my pocket. Stick your fingers in there and come on." Hadley's not up for that. Hadley finds a GPS tracker and installs an app so Miles can switch it on and off when the phone is scanned. It will assist. Xander, the boss, threatens to fire him again. Miles rushes off, but Xander seems unfazed. Miles realizes his adulthood and takes command. Miles apologizes and relief watches over Xander's face before Xander's brains wash over his she's back. Moss takes cover and asks Hadley to cover him as he runs off. The ever-loyal Hadley commits what can only be described as a war crime. Mistakes were made. This buys Miles enough time to hijack a car. But Nix is hot on his trail. A high-speed chase ensues while Hadley enjoys the show. During a bathroom break, Nix catches up and somehow ends up on top of his car. This looks awfully dangerous. I hope they don't crash. Somehow they survived this, and apparently Nix is a Terminator. Also, someone busts into Hadley's stall and grabs him mid-poop. I presume the chase continues on foot and Miles heads into an abandoned building. He pops some pitiful shots off at Nix, prompting her to give him some tips on how to hold the gun. He returns the favor by shooting her, this time successfully. Some more running takes place while the pair trade shots. He manages to flank her, then fires out a machine, causing it to blow up. Nix cowers in fear as she relieves a traumatic event from her childhood. Miles spares her life and again runs off. He tries to hitch a ride, but waving around his gun kind of just scares people off. Whatever their loss, he contacts Nova, who answers, and he finally tells her the weapons are fastened to him. "Oh, you are normal." Suddenly, Nova is attacked by Richter, who tells him he has 5 hours to kill Nix or else. Miles heads to a junkyard and turns his Gibbs tracker back on. He calls the cops and tells them that Nix will be at his location within 10 minutes. While he waits, he runs into a couple gangs doing business who are understandably sketched out about his guts. Things quickly escalate as things are about to get deadly for Miles. Nix's insane minigun kills everyone. Miles escapes and murders. SWAT squad arrests him. The 2 earlier officers decide to postpone a hospital visit since they still need him to capture Nix. Detective DeGrace informs Miles that he captured Richter 16 years ago, but he obtained bail and found his family. His daughter survived while his wife and son perished. Richter asks, "Who owns the police?" Stanton drove the 3 guys away in the automobile. He answers Grace's queries swiftly. Miles escapes the automobile alive. He must see a video of Richter chastising him for calling the cops. Richter resurrects Miles. He has 30 minutes to murder Nix before Richter destroys Nova. Stanton exits and Miles notices the detective's useless bulletproof armor. He then approaches a female at a gaming cafe to help him go into Nova's account to discover her phone. "I recognize you from Guns of Akimbo." Mo's virality does not suit him. He locates Nova with the Schism Squad. "Sorry, Hadley." Miles Hatch activates his GPS tracker one final time. He says, "You win, I win." After Nix, Miles' capture makes everyone pleased, yet others are upset since they admire her unique personality. Rick sends a cleaning team when Nova cries. Miles' eyelids barely move when his corpse is recovered, indicating he is alive. His kidnappers welcome him to the Schism hideaway. He stumbles across Nix, who reveals that this was the plan Nick helped Miles place on her father's bulletproof vest, and the rest is history or the future. Miles and Nick use gamer fuel to launch a 360-degree bullet storm, killing all of Richter's goons. Richter sends Effie and Dane after the spectators. Nick captures their joy. Miles and Nick uncover a henchman. The computer showed Schism wants to become global. "You guys are sick, degenerate losers," Miles scolded the millions watching. "Who is this guy?" The crowd chuckles. Benjamin watches more volumes. Ho Benjamin. Before Ify shoots, Nyx praises her firearms. Miles gets shot in the chest, and Nyx kicks down the steps by name, separating them. Nyx loses her beloved fingers as their argument escalates. Dane beats her with stop hammer time. While cornered by Effie, Miles sneaks a headshot to Nyx. Nyx gets lucky when a gaming fuel bag falls out. She knows eats and levels up. She beats Dana now. Nyx dies for me. She runs with firearms and explodes. Gamer girl Miles climbs the roof after seeing Nova's markings. Millions wait in anticipation as their favorite character meets the final boss after defeating all odds. Nova helps Miles pistol whip Richter. Richter survives till Miles kills him. Mole's gift kills our major adversary. Miles dies as Nova flees. At the film's conclusion, Miles had become Nyx's killer badass. He has much to accomplish now that Schism is increasing. The end. Watch another video.